Hey everybody, Gary Hubbell here, United Country, Colorado Brokers and Auctioneers. I am an accredited land consultant and the managing broker and auctioneer.
Loren Williams, associate broker here with United Country, Colorado Brokers and UC Ranch Properties. I'm out of Loma, Colorado.
So today we're going to talk about something that's near and dear to both of us, and that is hunting properties, Loren. And so give the listeners an idea of your experience and your background in the world of Western Colorado hunting.
Well, born and raised, fifth generation in Colorado, so been hunting my whole life. Grew up with a ranch family, and we kind of did it then, but been professionally guiding and outfitting for about 20 years now. Know it pretty well inside and out, as well as one can in Colorado. Got pretty big experience with elk, trophy mule deer, a little bit of lion and bear hunting in my day, but mostly big game. We've even done a little bit of waterfowl guiding throughout the years.
Yeah, you had some formative years over on the eastern slope in Sterling and shooting snow geese and mallards and all that, right?
Yeah, some of the best central flyway hunting there in the large croplands and the river bottoms.
Cool. And I am, again, Gary Hubbell. I told you what I do, but I was an outfitter. I guided and outfitted for a total of about 22 years, mostly in the in the Marble, Colorado area. Between Aspen and Crested Butte, really, and I guided fly fishing on the Roaring Fork and the Frying Pan for quite a lot of years, over 20 years, and then we had an outfitting business there in Marble and had, 150,000 150,000 acres of National Forest to outfit in. And then we did have a couple of really nice hunting leases as well. That's what we're going to talk about today, is hunting properties. What is it that makes a good hunting property, Loren?
Well, you got many factors there. Like any piece of property or real estate, location is obviously very important. The simplest way to break it down is food, water, and cover. And if you have those things, the animals will typically find their way to you. It's varying degrees of properties, whether they're large acreage and the animals are residents and live there and you can manage them a little bit better, or possibly you border public lands and you get the animals moving to you off of pressure, or perhaps you're in a migration corridor where deer, elk, pronghorn, everything else migrate through or around the property, perhaps in the later seasons when the snow piles up. So just the perfect property is probably for however it fits a person best. But if you've got those attributes of food, water, cover, and ability for them to stay away from pressure at certain times, you're going to have animals there.
So let's do it this way, Loren. Let's go from small to large as far as what makes a good hunting property for acreage. And I just got back from Iowa and was with the boys from the Midwest there, and they were talking about they were getting their deer steward designation, which I didn't even know there was such a thing, but they do it. And you might even have a decent hunting property with 20 acres. Or certainly 40 or 80 acres, you can have decent whitetail hunting if you steward it right. And you can hunt on 40 acres in Colorado, but man, you can't really anticipate having long-term success that way. Smaller properties. Again, we sold that one. You and Jake had that listing on up above Montrose that was an inholding in the National Forest, a 40-acre property. Tell us about that. Why was that such a great hunting property, even though it was only 40 acres? And what did it sell for? Around $390, $385, something like that?
I think that one went for about $375.
Okay. It was 40 acres, so almost $10,000 an acre, which for unirrigated mountain land is kind of a premium, right?
It is, and that one, if I remember right, I think that one set at almost 10,000 feet.
Yeah, it was high.
So if you've got a smaller acreage property, typically in the West, bigger is better, but if you got a smaller acreage property that's in an inholding, which means that it's surrounded by public lands, usually around here, National Forest, and it kind of limits the access of the public in there. You get all that bonus acreage. I believe that one bordered up to about 230,000 acres of public land.
Wow.
So you buy 40,
Yeah.
you can hunt 270,000 acres that's there. So sometimes if you're not as concerned about hunting right on your actual private property, but somewhere that gives you good access to other property, that can be just as good as a 1,000-acre ranch.
Well, and one of the biggest things about hunting in Colorado and the West in general is, I got to be honest, creature comfort. You know, I was talking to somebody the other day, Slade Priest, with our Mississippi office, and Slade sells a lot of hunting properties, but he was talking about coming out to Montrose, Colorado, just south of here, 45 minutes, and going on a private land elk hunt there and paying pretty good money to do it. But he said that, hey, hot shower every night, we're staying in a cabin. So what does it mean just to simply have enough creature comforts to where you can get in, stay dry your clothes out, get warm, and have a hot shower and a nice meal? What does that mean?
It goes a long way. It, I don't know, improves morale.
Yeah.
If you know that you're going to be hiking in there on a backpack and laying a tarp on the ground and sleeping on a rock that night, you may not be as excited to get going the next day.
Well, especially if you get wet, or if
Yep.
it snows, or it starts getting really miserable. It can be more of an experience of privation and deprivation than actually having a good time hunting, right?
Yeah, you want to be comfortable, not on a survival show, if at all possible there. But, I mean, if you can come back, we all know what a hot shower will do for you at the end of a long, hard day, and particularly if you've been wet and cold the whole day and working. Get a nice meal in your stomach, sleep in a comfortable bed. I mean, that can really, hunting out here is hard, even if you are hunting on private property. That you're at elevation, your terrain is rough.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's rocky, it's steep, it's brushy. It's, you're not just walking flat lands. So, being able to come back and have those creature comforts, it'll keep you going, keep you in a better mood, and keep your hunting going a little longer.
So, there are some parcels that I know of, like, what is that, Forbes Trinchera down there by Fort Garland or whatever. And you can find a 5 or 10 acre parcel down there, and there's hunting off of the backside. There's some little inholdings of National Forest and so forth. So you can go as small as 5 or 10 acres and still have hunting. But really the goal is to hunt the public lands, of which we have a lot around that. So is it fair to say that somebody could buy a hunting property in the, I personally, my bottom line budget is around $250,000 to $300,000. What is your minimum budget for? Now, vacant land, of course, is different, but say somebody has a rudimentary, at least a serviceable cabin. I think kind of our minimum is around $250,000, wouldn't you say?
You're probably going to be pretty close to that to get anything that is desirable enough to be within, walking distance, possibly bordering public lands, etc. Now, you're not going to probably buy acreage size-wise enough to typically hunt unless animals are just passing through. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Maybe you do. Maybe you've got some kind of a crop there. Maybe you've got a water source that brings them in. That property you were discussing up there above Cimarron, it had multiple springs on it, and they had moose, elk, deer, everything walking through there almost on a daily basis. So you could hunt it. Maybe one person could, but Colorado's roughly 50% public land. So if you can find the right property that's situated in an area, perhaps restrictions from trailheads not being nearby, limit your public pressure a little bit around there, you can really make that small acreage exponentially larger with that.
And that is because as you and I both know, I mean, it was interesting in this whitetail seminar I just took they were talking about, what was the term, sojourn or expedition or something, to where these big mature whitetail bucks will on occasion just go out and, where everybody says they live within, say, a 3/4 of a mile radius of their whole life. Well, sometimes they'll go 8 miles that way and then back, and then, or 20 miles that way and then back. And it might be a day, or it might be, several days. And there was one example of a buck traveling 186 miles. And then somebody finally shot him. He was going through somebody's in front of somebody's hunting blind, and that buck was way out of town for what he was used to. But my point is, elk will routinely travel, 5 or 10 miles. I mean, you get a herd of elk spooked, and they will cover the ground, right?
Yeah, the old adage, you spook a whitetail, he may run off 100 yards, look back at you, and then saunter off into the thick stuff. And that you spook an elk, and particularly that lead cow,
or a herd of elk.
Yeah, herd of elk, and they'll take that 3 mountain ranges over. Parks and Wildlife here has collared some elk that will travel 200 miles,
wow,
round trip just to do it, and that's not even counting their migration routes that are there. But they do typically, return to where they're comfortable. Bulls like to rut in the same areas. They'll return places year after year. Their migration routes are, some of them hundreds, if not thousands of years old. And so, they have the ability to travel pretty far and wide. And as you said, that it's a herd mentality. You're not looking at just a single animal and what's motivating them. You've got others following the leader.
And mule deer bucks are very, very similar. So the range of a mule deer buck in general, though, in my opinion, is far, far greater than a whitetail, because, where we sit right here in Hotchkiss, we're at, 5,400 feet in elevation right now. And I actually saw a buck. We've got a little acreage right here on my office parcel. It's 5.6 acres, and the highway's right there, and it's pretty busy. But there was a buck bedded down in the hayfield the other day, and just laying there. So you'll have mule deer everywhere from this elevation, or even lower, to as high as 12,000 feet, and they can be bedded down. Now, when I was outfitting, what we used to do when somebody had a high country buck tag or wanted to go after them during that second rifle season, is we hunted the high rims, and I'm talking above timberline. And that's where those bucks like to hang out. They'd like to lay down and get sheltered, and with a little, that crooked wood is what it's called, Krumholz, and it's very dense and thick, and they can get a little cover there, and they just sit there and watch the world go by at 12,000 feet. But when the snow hits, and for me, I think the magic rule is about 8 to 10 inches of snow, they start draining out of the high country. Then it's anybody's guess, because they may travel 40 or 50 miles to their winter range. Am I correct?
Yeah, the mule deer seem to be a lot more weather and snow sensitive than the elk do.
Yeah.
We typically see them around early October when it starts getting cold. They'll start showing up a little bit more, and then a first couple of good snows, they tend to head for lower elevations pretty fast. Like you said, they may journey quite a few miles. They really like going down into the lower elevations where the planted crops are and to winter down there. They'll journey back and forth up to the timber where they can hide and where they got good cover. But that's why you'll see a lot more of them later season in the river bottoms and the croplands and the lower elevation areas, where the elk will tend to stay up higher until they have to leave.
So if you have a property in the river bottom, it might actually make pretty good late season hunting for bucks.
Yeah, it certainly does, and for elk as well. Elk tend to move more off of pressure than they do of weather. They don't like being pressured by people. So if they're getting hunted at 10,000 feet pretty exclusively, it doesn't matter if it's 95 degrees down lower. They may drop down to 6,000 feet and hide out down there. Because had an old boy tell me one time they'd rather be hot than shot. So they
makes
move,
a lot of sense.
They tend to move more off of pressure than the weather does, and they seem to endure harsher weather a lot more than the deer do.
And they can put up with 3 feet of snow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Elk can get through. They have a different stomach system. They eat more things like bark and browse and such, and they can stay at the higher elevations a little longer.
So we kind of got established what the migration patterns are, and the fact that a Colorado hunting property is it's kind of an open-ended question. I mean, There are some properties, however, where the elk and the deer do stay on them through the year round. And typically, though, those are larger properties that we're talking about, and we do have a set of buyers that comes in and routinely buys those properties where there are guys that are looking for that, and then they really want to have a good western hunting property for elk and deer, and possibly pronghorn, maybe moose, those kinds of things. But and they're willing to pay. So, for example, let's talk about the Porter Ranch, which we just got listed yesterday.
Yeah, and that one's, I believe, about 3,600 acres.
3526.
Yeah, which is quite large and all contiguous, which brings us kind of back to a point we should have made previously. If you would like to get landowner tags for your property, you're going to want at least 160 contiguous acres, and it's going to need to be a species that you don't have a over-the-counter license available for.
All right, so let's talk about over-the-counter, and let's talk about landowner draws or landowner preference points. Now, the state of Colorado sets. Now, you're on the Wildlife Advisory Board or the Wildlife Commission, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm a state board chair with the Colorado Sportsman's Caucus that works hand in hand with Parks and Wildlife as far as making wildlife policy, season structures. We take the voice of sports people around the state and take that to the Parks and Wildlife folks and commission and put our input on things. So.
Okay. Well, so 15% of the tags are reserved for landowners, or the limited licenses are reserved for landowners in any given game management unit. Am I correct?
Yeah, and it's actually 20%.
20%
now,
wow.
and that comes off the top of the pool before that quota is established for how many licenses are available, and it's the Landowner Preference Program, LPP for short. There's a list of qualifications on there that you have to have for your property to qualify, but the baseline is 160 contiguous acres. You can't buy 80 on one side of the road and 80 on the other side of the road and consider that contiguous. It has to all run together within one. And here we have a lot of opportunities for hunting elk over the counter in Colorado. So if it is
which means, and by the way, let me interject, over the counter elk licenses means that you can walk into Walmart or any hunting sporting goods store and buy your license up to the night before the hunt. If you actually go to the CPW stations, like the one in Montrose or the one in Grand Junction, you can buy a license during the season.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So you could just walk in and buy a license, no need to apply, no need to worry about getting a license, and typically that's a bull tag. But no buck tags are available over the counter.
No, all deer in Colorado is by draw only.
And that's really what landowners are looking for, are the buck vouchers more than anything. But for units like Unit 40 in Glade Park, they've got some hellacious, really nice bulls up there. And so if you've got a landowner voucher for a bull tag in Unit 40, you could have a chance at getting a 380 plus bull, right? You're up, landowner tags.
Yeah, not only does having that landowner tag or voucher work for you as the landowner if you want to personally hunt your property, but it's also a great way to make some extra income and residual income off the property by selling those. They're in really high demand. If somebody would rather wait 10 years to draw that license, or if they can't wait and they just buy one for $10,000 from a landowner.
Do they go that high, $10,000?
We've kind of had a general rule of thumb on there that you're usually looking about $1,000 per year that it takes you to get it. So if that license would take you 5 years, you're looking at around $5,000, et cetera.
That's fair.
On down the line. So finding a property that would qualify for landowner preference tags is a big deal to some folks. Others it's not. Now if there is an over-the-counter license available for that species, let's say you can hunt second rifle over the counter, then that property will not qualify for a landowner tag for elk.
Okay.
Now you can get others, and it has to be a species that runs on the property as well. You can't buy
you can't get Summit County.
Yeah, you can't get pronghorn tags for your property that's at 12,000 feet where a pronghorn have never set foot on.
Okay.
So it has to be
Fair
a
enough.
huntable population of that species on your property.
Okay. And really, the regulations state that as a landowner, if you sell that voucher, you are supposed to let that hunter hunt on your ranch. Although I was just actually when I was in Iowa, one of the fellows was geeked about coming out here and hunting mule deer bucks, and he was online looking for landowner tags. He found one, and the person who had that tag said, "Oh, and by the way, we don't want you hunting on the ranch." It's like, which is really not fair in my book, but that's how they were playing it.
Yeah, if the hunter is just looking for a license, maybe they know where to go on public land in the area. Probably not as much of a big of a deal, but it is a requirement of the LPP that you do provide them with the land that the voucher is good for to hunt on
Sure.
that property. Now, you as the landowner can set parameters. You can say walk-in access only, no driving around during hunting, peak hunting hours. You have to camp on this side of the ranch, you have to camp off property. A lot of people don't want fires and things going on their property or four-wheelers running around. So there are, you can set some parameters as the landowner, but you do also need to include access to the property that voucher is good for.
So what you're saying though is that not only that is a fungible item. I mean those tags are something that can be bought and sold and legally transacted, so that maybe you're kind of running out of money, or you'd like that $10 or $15 or $20,000 a year in income. All right, cool.
Yeah, it's a great way to offset all of your costs. Well, not all of your costs, but many of your costs with having and maintaining the property. Is if you and a few of your grandkids, the only one's going to be hunting, but you get 20 deer tags for it a year. It's a great way to produce extra income and kind of help keep that property in line with your budget.
Fair enough. Now, Loren, let's talk. It's the big kahuna that we just listed, the Porter Ranch, right outside of Newcastle. I'm going to tell everybody about what the attributes are of this ranch. It's 3,526 acres, and it's pretty much all contiguous. The only thing that's not really contiguous is there's a couple of BLM parcels that are right in the middle of the ranch that no one could ever access unless they flew in by helicopter without traveling through the ranch. So it's actually a little bigger than 3,526, but base elevation 6,000 feet, highest elevation 7,800 feet, deer and elk all over that place. Am I wrong?
No, it's got all the things to draw game to it. You have the water assets that are there,
Which are significant.
I believe a 1,200 acre foot reservoir that's there that controls all that. Much of the property in hay production,
which is snack time for deer and elk.
Deer and elk absolutely love being able to come down there, stay fit, survive the winter. They're willing to put up with a little bit of pressure from you and your hunting friends coming out there to know that this place is safe the rest of the time around the year. And it is a big draw for wild game. It's in between two large valley corridors that's there. So for a hunting ranch, yes, it has excellent potential for a buyer.
But the thing about this ranch is, and it kind of concerns me to some extent, because I really am a conservationist at heart, and I don't like to see properties carved up. But that's a phenomenal development parcel, because it's right in that Aspen Glenwood Springs rifle corridor, and real estate development is going crazy around there. And I grew up in that valley, and man, there's a lot of pressure on it, and so that could be that ultimate luxury neighborhood where there's 500 homes or heck, several, couple thousand homes in there, but they have the water resources to support all that, and it's only 11 minutes to the interchange on I-70 at Newcastle. 11 minutes from I-70 to the ranch gate. That's easy traveling. So I think it has a lot of potential there, but really where I see that ranch is a buy and hold strategy for somebody, because think of it this way: if you're a guy and you made some money, and there's a lot of guys out there that have a lot of money right now. We see them all the time, and you look at that ranch and you go, well, why wouldn't I take $15 million? And we have it priced at what, 15.9 or
15.9?
15.9, yeah. and which I really think is a great price on that property, because it's right at about $5,000 an acre when everything else around it is selling for $10,000. So I think it's a heck of a value to start with. But the thing about it is, you could take your $15 million, park it in that ranch, let it be, enjoy it, hunt it, have a great time. What's it going to be worth in 10 years, Loren?
I mean, the way prices have been going in Colorado most recently, I mean, our population has doubled in the last 20 years. Large swaths of land like that are very difficult to find
Especially
now.
in that area.
Especially in that area.
It could be worth $30 million
in
like
10
years.
Like I said, your proximity to I-70, Aspen, Glenwood, Sunlight Ski Resort, all that right behind it there. I mean, I would think you're probably going to go north of 20 million within that time frame.
That's a no-brainer.
So you could certainly get it, enjoy it, and hold it as an investment while you're getting to use the property and enjoy the property. Bring your kids, bring your business associates, bring your folks out there. And yeah, you and I as hunters and outdoors people and conservationists, we would love to see it, stay in a nice big piece all together and have another family. This family's had this property since, I believe, about 1895.
No, you're wrong.
Earlier?
1880.
1880.
1880. They were one of the first ranches in the entire area to be settled.
But we have to balance that with the fact that we are brokers, and it is our job to find the highest and best use for our clients. And when somebody goes to sell a property like that, as much as it may kind of pain many generations to see it go one way, it is prime for a development property. What I really think it could be great for as well is like a shared amenities type ranch.
Yeah.
You could buy
the cocktail ranch.
You could buy a 35, 40 acre parcel in there, have a limited amount of owners to build a home, set it up properly, and all those owners could enjoy the hunting and fishing and water assets, the snowmobiling, cross-country skiing, everything that you've got to offer right within there. And you could keep it fairly wild, don't have a bunch of houses in there, but still keep it in as well of a natural state as you could.
Yeah. And we've been, and it's July right now as we're doing this podcast, but we've been on the ranch at that time of year and seeing does and fawns and cow elk and calves and all kinds of wildlife, and so they're on that ranch year round. That is one of those properties where it's not hard access. I mean, you can get it just about everywhere you want to on that ranch with a side-by-side. So I want to hunt it this fall.
Yeah. There's an excellent road system in place. They've got to be able to get around, take hunting clients. They got to be able to get farm equipment around there, service the irrigation equipment and such. So there's an excellent set of roads for access through the property. I mean, if you cruised around on a bicycle very quietly you could probably creep right up on
That'd be a great
animals.
place to use an e-bike.
It would. It would.
Go hunt off your e-bike. All right, Loren, to recap, we covered a lot of ground here, but we talked about hunting properties in Colorado and the fact that, yes, even a smaller acreage can be used as a launching point, basically, to hunt on a larger public land parcels, and heck, some of them can be hundreds of thousands of acres. So, but controlling access and controlling how many people in the public that you're competing with is a big part of this.
It is, but you don't necessarily have to have that big acreage ranch to do it. You can still find a good hunting property, a good base out of for you and family and everybody to enjoy at the working man level, all the way up to the much larger trophy type ranches and much more acreage and assets to each of those.
So how do you consider a property like this as an investment for the long term?
Well, I mean, it is land, and as we all know, they ain't making any more of it. And if it's me and I got money, it's going into the ground and not into markets and such that are on a topsy-turvy spin every single day.
Well, it reminds me, Loren, back in the day, I used to guide fly fishing in Aspen, and I guided a lot of those Wall Street guys, and there was something I learned about them. Sure, they're smart, but they're not that smart. They're not smarter than you and me. They just want to be there. And they're willing to make the sacrifice of sleeping in the office or spending 14 or 16 hours a day, grinding it out and all that to make a $20 or $30 million bonus on a merger and acquisition or something like that. So, but I learned that they're picking the bones pretty well clean, and then sending the deals out to the market at large, to where we invest as individual investors in stocks, and those stocks, all the money's been made really already before it ever hits the market. Okay, but the way I look at it is, I want to invest in my own future in land, and that's where I have the majority of my portfolio right now. And gosh, it's been great for us, and typically on average, over the last 20 years, through our Realtors Land Institute data that we collect as an organization, land values have appreciated 7 to 10% a year, every year for the last 20 years in a row. And I don't see that trend changing. In fact, if anything, I see it going higher. So, as the guys with UC Hunting Properties say, stand on your investment, right? Why not invest in land?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just nothing. You can be in all that other stuff, but diversification is obviously key to anybody having a proper and long-term portfolio. But, what can you do with Apple stock? It's great. It's out there. It's making you money. It's doing something. Maybe it's up and down, but you can drive out. You can watch the sunset from this. You can have a campfire around it with your kids. You can go fishing and hunting. You can do something with this investment. You can enjoy it, as you said. Stand on your investment, as you see hunting properties guys say. So it's one of those things that if you're not looking at land as an investment, you really need to.
I agree. I'm heavily invested, and I'm glad of it. Yeah, it was really fun out there dealing with the center pivot fertilizer this morning. We had a little adventure with that.
I didn't say it wouldn't come with headaches.
Anyway, all right, Loren. Hey, nice job. And we'll talk soon. Gary Hubbell, United Country, Colorado Ranch Broker, and Loren Williams.
Yep. You can find me at Loren at uccoloradobrokers.com, and I'm out of Loma, Colorado, but we cover all over the West.
Amen. Hey there, Gary Hubbell, Colorado Ranch Broker, with United Country, Colorado Brokers and Auctioneers.
Loren Williams, UC Ranch Properties, UC Colorado Brokers as well.